My name is Beth MacDonald Stone, and I'm an avid knitter and knitwear designer living in Bermuda. I'm coming to you, I think, about 3 weeks since the last podcast, 2 or 3 weeks. It's been an eventful, 3 weeks. It's been an eventful 3 weeks. So I don't know, I guess you say buckle up and here we go. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it and all about knitting and what I've been knitting on and traveling and a little bit of health stuff. So, and if you hear that bone banging around, it's my dog right there. You can see her in the shadow. She's being occupied, so a little bit of scraping noise. It's a happy dog. She probably won't bark. It's a win. Anyways, so hope you're all well. Hope you've had a great January. January can be such a strange, dreary month, but VKL, Vogue Knitting Live New York was this month, so I always find that a really great thing to sort of set your sights on and be a focal point, and a week in New York is really fun too. So more on that's gonna come, but I'm gonna first start with knitting and then we'll go on to Vogue Knitting and some life stuff, and that's just gonna be, I think, the plan for today. I have notes. I'm gonna refer to notes because there seems to be a lot of points and a lot of things that I'll totally forget. So bear with me if I look down. Notes are right here. And in the video, all the notes for all of the patterns and other things like that, yarns, and anything else that I talk about will be in the show notes, which are right below. So notes everywhere. Yay for notes. Love notes. Okay, so what am I wearing? And this is the pattern highlight. This is the Deepdene pullover. 2-color version and a 1-color version. I knit this and designed this so long ago. I was looking back in Ravelry and I think this is what I was doing last spring. So sometimes patterns take almost a year to the publication and sometimes it's just a couple months. It's amazing, what time of year and how quickly you want to have them tech edited and how quickly test knit and stuff like that. So this was one that I sort of worked on before the summer and then I just left it for the summer and resumed with all of the work in the fall, and I'm super thrilled with it. I love it. I wear them both a lot. I love pastels, but pastels don't love me. So in this 2-colored version, I'm using the Wandering Flock, and so I'm using sort of a very bold citron mustard color just to kind of help bring this very muted. Oh gosh, it's really getting into the bone. Sorry. No barking. Anyways, I really like this bold mustard color. Really helps with my ability to pull off pastels and stuff like that, where pastels are great, especially the more gray I go. It accentuates that, but not good for my skin color. Citron good. So the 2-color one is, the yarn is the Wandering Flock Merino DK. Love this yarn. It's really beautiful. Her colors are really special. Everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with the Wandering Flock. Geraldine, she has a really unique sense for color. Really, I'm drawn to it, but I have to be very careful because I think a lot don't really work with my skin tone. But again, this is the way, if anyone's in autumn out there, this is how I've done it. It's a fun, I like knits that are a little bit interesting enough to hold my attention, but not require a huge amount of attention. And so you'll notice that's sort of a theme in most of my designs. If they're never really that complicated, just because I don't enjoy knitting things that are stressful or whatever. So this is a really fun, it's a really simple knit. It's a really simple construction, top down in the round, no seaming. There are charts for the textured stitches, which is just knit purls. So this is like a typical Gansey, but with maybe a bit of a modern twist. There's short row shaping in the ribbing, and then you just carry on. You can change colors, you can go all one color, you can change colors in different places. I had a really great group of test knitters for this one, and people interpreted it quite differently. I know Noelle Nelson from, oh my gosh, I didn't write this word down. Noelle's Knits and Pieces, so sorry, gosh, blank. Anyways, she put her second color in the transitions, so that it was basically, it appears as a 1 color, similar to this, but in these sort of transitional areas. She put in a second sort of subtle color, really cool. So again, lots of ways to modify to make your own. Again, this is the Wandering Flock, and then the solid color I used Hedgehog fibers and Tweedy. Now with that, because of course it's a tweed yarn, whoops, squeak. My gal's a bit rusty, I guess, not squeaky. Anyways, so it's less obvious, but it's quite interesting. And actually this is the one that I wear, and I found like a lovely sweatshirt to wear all the time, where this one you have to put a little bit more thought into the color of what you wear with it, which, you know, I love this. Denim looks great with this. And then this fun yellow top, but this, honestly, everything. And I've been living in turtlenecks this winter, just so this has been just great for just really no thought dressing. But yeah, you can see the Tweedy. If I twist her around, you can see the motifs through. Really simple, subtle, really effective. I didn't put any of the motifs on either of the sleeves. They're plain sleeves. My first one that I knit was this one here, and I had originally designed it to have the motif running into the sleeve. It seemed too busy, but I think it was this yarn where in the solid it would be great. And another one of my test kniters, my good friend Priscilla, she put the pattern onto the sleeves, and it looks spectacular. So again, please always look at my designs and please think how it would better suit you or fit you. Again, please look at the sizes. There's always schematics. My intention is to start making sure all the schematics are on my pattern pages, because I do think that's really helpful when you're choosing whether you wish to knit something, just to have as much information as you can there. And the schematics do give a lot of information. So again, very easy to modify for fit. I'm a big believer in that. Know your magic numbers. And in these top-down sweaters, there's a lot of opportunity to adjust for your optimal fit. What else can I say about them? I kind of think this is all I have. Other than this will be up when this podcast is up on YouTube. This design will be up on Ravelry, and I usually do a discount for the first week, so that'll all be on there. No coupon required, but it'll be for the first week of the pattern release. That information will be all up. So, you know, if it appeals, go for it. Get the discount. I think I usually do 20%, but I have to look back at my notes. Gosh, it's something so simple and I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I do 20% off for the first week. So yeah. I hope you love it. I think it's a fun knit, and I had great feedback from all the test knitters that they really enjoyed it as well. So there we go. Off my needles. So another design that I have been working on a lot, and you've probably heard me talk about it, is the Bermy Basic. So the Bermy Basic, the concept there is it's one very general sweater pattern that you can knit at any gauge. Any gauge, there'll be in increments of 2. So any gauge between a 12 stitch gauge per 4 inches to a 28 stitch gauge per 4 inches. This is a pattern I've been working on for about 2 years now. It'll be coming up to 2 years. Yeah, 2 years this spring. It's taken a while. It's basically a mathematical, I found a repeating formula. So it's all in the mathematics, but basically in every stitch gauge you can have the same basic sweater. It's a really simple sweater. It's in each pattern there'll be a tapered sleeve option and a straight sleeve option. Otherwise, the rest is up to you to customize, you know, because it's so simple. This is a really easy sweater to start off if you're a beginner knitter. It's a great pattern, and it's a great pattern if you know what you particularly like. You know, you can adjust sleeve length, short, 3/4, bracelet, slim, which is in the design, straight. You could do balloon, you could do whatever. Collar you could adjust, you could put a turtleneck, you could do whatever, you know, and again, body length, body fit, you could add A-line shaping, you could add a split hem, some people have, high-low hem, you know, add textured stitches, add color work. But basically, you know that when you go to a yarn store or a fiber festival or whatever, if you get excited about any yarn in your stash, whatever, And you're like, oh God, this would make the most amazing sweater. You know you have a pattern that you can play off and you can riff off of it. And that's the design, that's the concept. So this is the Bermy Basic, and this one here is the 24, so the 24 stitch gauge. I just finished it literally days before I went to New York, and I wore this because it was quite warm for the first half of the time. This was just absolutely perfect, and I wore this almost every day with a turtleneck and a denim button-down shirt and skirts and running shoes because it was so warm. It was amazing. Anyways, so this was just so fantastic. The yarn for this is Bien Aimee, and it is, excuse me, Felix. I always get Helix and Felix confused. This is Felix, and I held it double. Now I did I do helical knitting? I believe I might have done some helical knitting for after the short rows and through the body. I didn't do helical knitting on the sleeves. And you can see where one skein ended and one started. But it's amazing how much, I know everyone always says this, on the camera it really picks up the difference. But in reality, it's just kind of cool. It's just kind of, you know it's kind of tonal. And it was interesting, when I was walking around the city, so many people would say, what a cool sweater. So I don't know what made it particularly cool. I think the yarn is really spectacular and the color is fantastic. And the fact that it's not like, cookie cutter stamped color wise, I think that's kind of cool, which is also great for this Bermy Basic pattern, because if you get anything that is excuse me, hand dyed or whatever, I think it really shows it off, because you can add the any stitch pattern or whatever you want to it, but you also have sorry, that was a really big piece of being stripped off of whatever she's her toy. So you've got this really basic, so it can really show off really cool yarn, and I'm really excited about that. So over the past few years, I've been knitting up in all the different gauges, and I think I pretty much only have the few bulky gauges left to knit. I'm currently working on a 26 stitch gauge, which I'll show you in a second. But so I've pretty much knit most of them. We're just finishing. I think technically by the end of February, but everyone's, I think, pretty much finished or finishing or finished, significant parts of the test knit. We just finished or are working on the 18 stitch gauge and the 24 stitch gauge, and I think that's kind of coming to conclusion. I'm going to do a test call for 14 stitch gauge and 20 stitch gauge next, and I'm just going to keep on going through them. With the first test knitting group, so it was the 18 and the 24, we're not only discussing, if there's any number issues, we're also discussing wording. Now, I believe the wording is set. So future test knits for this design, I don't wish to talk about wording. The wording is as it is, because of course there's going to be 9 or 10. If I do a 10 stitch gauge, that'll be the 10th one. But as it stands, I think it's only going to be 9 versions between 12 and 28. Increments of 2 stitches. I've got the wording, and I would like to just stick on that. It's pretty simple, it's pretty pared down, but I think it's everything you need and nothing more, and that's kind of my intention. The rest of the rounds for test knitting, it's just going to be numbers. And if you have any major confusion, which I don't think you should. But anyway, so if that appeals, I'm worried that my test knitting group are going to burn out on, doing the same sort of thing, and it's going to be boring for them. So if anyone else would like to join my test knitting group list, please email me. Excuse me. My email is also down below here too, and I can put you on the list for upcoming. I might have to start getting. Might have to do like a Google Doc or forum or something like that for applications, but so far as it stands, I've been able to handle the requests, and it's been fantastic and great, and I thank you so much for your enthusiasm. But if it does get overwhelming, I may have to revisit how I do test calls outside of the existing test group, which have been fantastic. But again, I don't want to bombard them, and I don't want them to feel obligated. Again, there's so many amazing designs out there in the world, and mine is just, you know, especially when there's a repetition going on. So anyway, so this is the 24 stitch gauge, and I'm going to jump ahead a bit into works in progress because I'll just show you the 26 stitch gauge, and I purposely finished the body last night because it's just so much easier to show rather than having all sorts of yarn attached. So this is the 26-inch gauge, and for this I'm using a beautiful yarn that I found, well, my friend found when we were at Woolfolk. This lovely Townhouse Yarns Olla No.2 Bad Girl Riri. So Townhouse Yarns, and then let me just fix this in the back. Olla No.2 Bad Girl Riri, and what a fun yarn. I really love it. It's lamb's wool, I believe, and then it's just beautifully speckled. Now this, I purposely didn't want to do any helical knitting. I wanted it to pool, and I wanted it to sort of show off the yarn just as it would come off. So it's really interesting how there is sort of fewer in this part of the skein and more here, and then it again, more color down here. I love that. It's fantastic. It reminds me of a watercolor, what do you call a smock, you know, a painter's smock, and that's just so exciting to me. So next I'll do the sleeves. I'm going to do the straight sleeves for this. I really enjoyed that, especially since I really like to wear button downs underneath, and I'm really enjoying the straight sleeve right now, but I vacillate. So that's just today. Again, really simple pattern. I'm counting every 10 rows here so that I can just make sure that my row gauge is correct. A deep ribbed collar, short rows below just to raise the back a bit. There's no other short rows, but again, you could add them in the back if you'd like a high-low hem. You could, if I do have a hump at the back of my neck, it's just genetic. So I'd almost be inclined sometimes to even add more short rows here before you split for sleeves to further accentuate it, but I just want to keep it as simple as possible. That's my foibles. I know a lot of people don't need it, or most people don't need it. It's just I'm more curved than average. Yeah, so really fun, and I love this yarn. I think this is going to be spectacular. And it is interesting that all the ones that I have knitted have been the smaller gauge. That's what I gravitate to. I like to wear lots of layers, and Bermuda can be fickle. If the sun comes out, it can get quite warm, but it can be also damp and chilly. So the lighter layers are perfect, and also for traveling, I find you can really pack in a lighter sweater. But I'm super excited to, I think the next one I'm going to knit is the 14 stitch gauge, and I'm really excited to that because I have Big Birdie, and I have not used Big Birdie before, and I want to try that. So that's probably on my coming up, but there's so much to knit, and I've so little time. But anyway, so that's kind of the explanation of Bermy Basic, and I know I've talked about it before. I'm gonna keep talking about it because it is a major project that I'm working on, majors, and it takes up a lot of my time and headspace and organization at this point, especially trying to get it to the finish line. I am thinking that I will publish the gauges as we test knit them. It helps with my brain too, so I can just take it off and move on. And then my idea is to somehow bundle it so that you get discounts. If you purchase sort of 2 or 3 or whatever, you get further discounts, or the other comes gratis or whatever. I have to work on that with what's available on Ravelry. I was thinking of waiting until they were all available, but to be quite honest, I can only manage a couple at a time in test knitting. It's going to take a while, and we've just done 2. We'll have 2 more to go, so 4. So we'll be almost at the halfway point, probably by end of April. So you can see, I'd rather just keep getting them published with the intention that for the next fall, when the festival season starts again, the intention is that I'll be there for you. So so that next year you can purchase yarn with reckless abandon and know you have a pattern for sure. So that's that. So that's the Bermy Basic. I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited about the Deepdene, but I'm also super excited about so many other things. I'm also super excited because I just knit, and I've been wanting to knit this for so long. This is the Snowy Forest, and oh my gosh, this was such a joy to knit. I knit this the week. I had a small surgery. I had a lumpectomy 3 weeks ago on Thursday. And I needed to sort of just kind of lay low for a few days after. It was an incredibly painless procedure, it's just not a big deal, but I of course I wasn't ready to go out and do any cartwheels or, just wanted to take it easy for the next sort of week before I headed off to Vogue knitting. But anyway, so this was what I knit in my convalescing days, and it was such a fabulous thing to knit. So I knit it exactly as per pattern, even with the cuffs as they wrote it, which I had almost wished that maybe I should have done straight cuffs. I think it's a bit more modern right now, but this was published a few years ago when balloon sleeves were a bit more popular. Whatever. I wanted to follow someone else's writing that week, and it is just stunning. I mean, look at those gorgeous cables, and the cable that I'm absolutely obsessed with right here is this sort of feather cable, which I believe is a variation of what's called like a tent cable, and I'm quite obsessed with them. I like the horseshoe cable, but it's no surprise. It's been around forever, but the way that the yarn shines in this is just, in my mind, absolutely stunning. That to me gets me very excited. Anyways, so Snowy Forest. This is designed by Midori Hirose. I used Woolfolk Luft, colored L2, and held along with it Onion Yarns Silk and Kid Mohair, color 3002. Ravelry is just so wonderful, isn't it? Because you can look on it and I could see what yarn texture I was going for, and I realized I wanted something that was sort of defined enough to create defined stitches and not get totally lost in fuzz, but it needed a bit of fuzz to give it that sort of fuzzy muzzy chiaroscuro, that kind of halo that I think is so appealing with this pattern. And so I had the Woolfolk Luft, and I used every little bit. I had just a few scraps. It's like a teeny ball of just sort of ends, which is amazing. So I was worried that I was going to run out. I didn't. I got all the lengths that I wanted, and the fit is amazing. And this was just such a dream to knit, and it was such an easy knit. Now I know a lot of people are hung up on this pattern because there's no short row shaping, and that actually did stop me for a long while, because I do have this. I hunch and I have a hump in the back of my neck, and I don't like the look when it dips down. I mean, part of the reason why I wear collared shirts is to sort of fudge that area, but I definitely don't want my sweaters to go back down in that area. So I know other people have done all sorts of things and done short rows in the cables and all sorts of complicated things, but I wasn't really interested in that. Especially, I was doing the neckline like the afternoon I came home from the hospital, so there was not a lot of, after being put under, my brain was not interested in any sort of major hijinks. So I think I mentioned in my last podcast, I just was going to put it in the ribbing, and why not? And really, why not? It's amazing. Obviously, you need to do more than you normally would because it was doubled over, so it's the proportion is diminished. But I did short row shapings along the edge here, but in the ribbing. So totally successful. Maybe I should have done a few more because I would have preferred a little bit more in the back, but it was like a shot in the dark, and I was happy with it. And I was also worried about yarn, so great success. Again, can't recommend this pattern enough. Absolutely loved it, and I'm so happy to have it. It's kind of one of those. It was one of the. I think we all have those patterns that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna knit that one day, and sometimes it's not what you do right away. And this was definitely a pattern that I was definitely gonna knit one day, and I did it, and I'm thrilled with it, and I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I mentally resolved the short row shaping, and I'm happy with that, and I'm glad that I waited to figure out the yarn exactly, because the result is what I was envisioning, that I just couldn't articulate originally to myself to make the decision to go forward. Anyway, so really excited about that. So that was amazing. It was perfect. It was really, I was so tempted to take it with me to New York, but it's a big sweater, and I knew I needed to take a few of my own designs, but to wear. But that is a thing that does slow me down. I'm doing bulky knits. When you really want them, when you're in a really cold climate, I can't just, traveling. I try to do carry-on, which I'm not always successful, and I certainly wasn't this time, because I knew that I couldn't lift a heavy suitcase, so I just had carry-on for my knits and a checked bag, which was empty. Anyways, but so you can't just shove a bulky knit into a carry-on with all your other stuff and travel that way. So that's kind of a bummer for bulky weight sweaters. I can only really wear them here. It does get really cold. It's been really cold here, so I have actually been wearing them and with turtlenecks and pretty much sleeping in them at night too, because it's been really chilly and the house is really damp. So anyway, so that's that. So those are the two things that were off my needles, and a little bit of what I'm working on, which was the Bermy Basic 26. When I was traveling, I took, I think I showed you in January that I knit fingerless mittens out of the lovely Woolens and Nosh Advent, because I knit the tube so small. So this trip I just took the rest, and I went up a needle size to 1.5, I believe. I can't see it. Pretty sure. Yeah, 1.5, 2.5 millimeters. I went up the needle size to get a larger gauge, and it's great. I've done them both. I just have to do the toe, and I just have to measure. I think I need to add a few more rounds of the gray to make up for length, but it's perfect. I've got no more of the striped left, and just a teeny bit of the gray contrast color that I'll use for the toe. I'll weigh that out, because that's really important that I don't just go hog wild and run out of yarn. So, and there's also, yeah, I have that and I have that. So actually, when I look at it now, I've got loads. So I'll finish that off. But I don't knit socks all the time and all that often. So this might not be done for a while. Whatever. I don't wear knit socks that much either. I find I wear them when I travel. That's it too, when it's really cold. And interestingly, I have a really great pair of Docks, which I took with me to New York, and there's a bit of a heel. It's sort of like a platform pair with a bit of a heel. And I realized if there's any heel at all in shoes, I don't like the feel of the knit socks. My princess feet, they almost get blisters on the balls of my feet, just where it rubs on the stitches. So that was a really interesting realization this trip. So I only wore my lovely, fabulous Docks once, because I didn't have any other socks to wear with them. Anyways, live and learn. But I do like knitting socks. I don't like giving them as gifts. I find people love the concept, but don't really want to. It's almost like giving someone a bit of a burden to maintain or whatever. So I've given them to my in-laws, my mother and stuff, and I notice that they're excited the first few times, and then the hand washing is kind of a downer. So I knit them, I enjoy them, I wear them when I can. Maybe I should wear them to bed at night when it's so cold. Anyways, okay. So what else am I working on? So I have just cast on, I have as we all do, a ton of scraps and small bits and leftovers and stuff. And I had a pattern that I released a couple of years ago, and it never was quite my vision. I never was really that pleased with it. It was supposed to be a fade and tunic length and kind of just cozy, and it was never like the expression that I wanted, and I wanted it to be sort of fuzzy muzzy. It was called the Spanish Moss Tunic, and it just wasn't really what I wanted. So I'm redesigning it. So I've started, and using scraps, so all sorts of scraps. So here's some. And so I'm using 2 strands of fingering weight and 1 strand of mohair. And I put all my scraps out on a counter in the office area. And then I split them into 3 sections. So the first section is what I'm working on. These are the 3 last I am going to add to that. And then the second section is sort of this transitional area. And then the third section is this sort of darker area here. So that'll be towards the hem. It's going to be a turtleneck. There's going to be an interesting detail around the neck. Stay tuned. I'm still working on that, so I don't want to promise it. It's nothing really complicated. It's just a concept I have that I have been known in my own mind to change. Yeah, and I'm hoping, I mean, obviously I'm not going to get through all this yarn, but I'm just going to use some of it and enjoy all these gorgeous colors together and see how they fade and relate to each other. And all the while holding the Ito Sensei color olive. And so that's my line here, delineating the second and third sections of color. I'm probably gonna have to order more Ito Sensei olive, but I'm not sure until I get through the first and maybe the second section. Then I'll just wait and figure out how much more I need, because you just never know. I got overwhelmed by having this sort of huge fade on the table, and I figured out that the overall tunic is probably, including the turtleneck, going to be about 40 inches. So I've decided that if you divide it into 3 sections, so 1, 2, 3, they'll be each around 13 inches long. And if I just work with that, then I know I'm on track. And yeah, I'm really excited about this one. So we'll see. So that's Spanish moss, and I don't know, that'll probably come out maybe in the fall, late summer. I don't know. I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a rush on that one. And then the other sweater that I need to get going on is, this is the Tamarind sweater, and I did this in strong warm tones. I've shown this to you before. I love it. This is currently in testing. I love this sweater, but I really wanted a cool tone version. So I am going to hold, this is going to be the body color, and let's see if we can do this to visualize. And this is Diamond Lane Birdie, and then I just have a bunch of what I call my workhorse yarn. So this is Holskarn's Super Soft in color Cool. Big Birdie. Oh, and this is big. This is light. This is Birdie, not Big Birdie. Birdie, and Bell Bottom Blues. So that'll go together with that. And then this is Birdie in Loam, and will go together with this one, and that'll be my edging. And so this is my cooler toned version of the Tamarind sweater, and this is called Dark Olive Super Soft again, whole Super Soft. So that I really need to get going on. This is not, I just would like to publish this pattern in early March, and I'd like to have another color option, although the test centers again are doing such an amazing job, and really excited about that. One's already done. One was knit in Big Birdie by Debbie Ricketts, who is prolific and does an amazing job. And that's done, and then everyone else is working away on it and doing amazing things. Great colors, great textures. Yeah, someone's even putting in a third color into the drops, which is really amazing. Again, I love when people throw their own, or put a bit of their own creativity on all the on my designs, because I just sort of feel like these designs are great. They're just how I see things, but I'd really like to see how you see things, and also how you make it fit you and suit you and your lifestyle better. It's really exciting to me. So that is kind of all that knitting stuff. I'm supposed to sit up straight, aren't I? You can see, this is what I like to do. I like to slouch, but I'm supposed to sit up straight, which is supposed to help my back, my upper back, but I don't do it. Anyways, so that is that. Now, talking about Vogue knitting and New York, I did record something in my hotel room. I think I'm going to insert that here, and if I don't, I'll come back and say, no. I need to look at it. I didn't realize how exhausted I was when I recorded it. So if I look flat or whatever, I was exhausted. It was Sunday afternoon, and I recorded it. Was still, thrilled and high on all the yarn fumes and the wonderful things of Vogue knitting. And then I remember after finishing recording it, I said to myself, I'm just gonna lie down for a few minutes before I go for dinner. Well, I was out for a really long time. It was a deep sleep. So I just have to make sure that I make a little sense in that video. And I hope it does, because I do think it's more interesting that you get a video from the space, like from New York. So I'm in my hotel room. I don't stay at the Marriott. I'm not a fan of Times Square. I get overwhelmed. There's too much energy, too many lights, too many people, too much. I'm a Village person or Soho. I spend a lot of time in Manhattan. So I really know it well. I'm happy on the subways. So I stay at a hotel that I stay at quite often. They treat me really well there. Not that they wouldn't, but it's sort of like, it's what I call my home away from home. And it was lovely. And they made my stay there really special with welcome treats and stuff like that, which I appreciated, because I do love traveling with my family. I really love traveling with myself too, but it is sort of lonely. And so it's nice when people, recognize you and welcome you back and things like that. And that really is fabulous. So I stay downtown. This is in Soho, right, just one block north of Canal Street. I love it. So I'm going to insert that video in here in the hopes that it is successful and makes sense. And if it's not, you'll see me back here in a second. I'll come back and talk more about New York after that. All right. Got to the Marriott and registered really easily. There was no lineup, which was lovely. Historically, there's been huge lineup, so you never know. I'm just gonna have a sip of cappuccino. So that was fantastic. And as I was walking up to the Marriott Marquis, I ran into Yan Kwan and Tanny Casey. So Yan Kwan is the owner of Forever Yarn Doylestown, and Tanny Casey is, of course, known for her beautiful handmade bags. So that was just so much fun, and I knew it was going to be a great weekend, seeing those two right at the beginning. So that was fantastic, and got into the evening at Vogue Knitting Live. It was a kind of a quiet start, which is fantastic because you could really get up close and whatnot to the yarn without a lot of people around you, which I find overwhelming. And saw a lot of people. Sent a lot of old friends, ran into Shannon and Lorian, who very kindly invited me to dinner, which was amazing to sit down and amazing to sit down and chat with people, because I find at the knitting events, it's wonderful to see people, and it's a quick hello and a hug and a photo and a how are you doing kind of thing. But it's such a luxury to actually have the time to sit down and chat with people. So was able to do that with Shannon of Whiskey and Wool, and Lorian of, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Lorian Sommier, who has does a lot on Instagram. So that was really fun. And yeah, I did quite well in the first night. It's amazing how you can just kind of go around and get an idea of what jumps out at you. And in the first night, the Brooklyn General stand wasn't too busy, so I hit them up and immediately fell in love with this Felix yarn. So I'm wearing Helix held double for this sweater. This is the Bermy Basic 24. And I just thought this Felix, which would knit up quite similarly gauge-wise, was really exceptional. So I thought, yay, amazing. And I love this sweater, so, you know, very keen to make more. And then when I was there also, they had, so this is Helix, sorry, in vintage Grello. And I love the cool and warm tones, the pinks, the blues on the gray base. And when I was there also, this one jumped out at me too. And this is Kumo Fiori. So I was thinking I could hold them together. So it would be held triple. I would do probably 2 of these and 1 of these. And that I might use for a future Bermy Basic, but maybe in the, I'd have to swatch test, gauge test, but maybe if this is 24, maybe I'd really like to do another 18 or so. So maybe I could push this to be an 18 stitch gauge. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited about that. They're not the exact same colorway, but I think they would really play off of each other. And if I were to hold the Felix double, I think it would give it enough substance to stand up for the Kumo. So hopefully this could be an 18 and maybe even be able to push this to a 16 stitch gauge, but I could be totally wrong. So stay tuned. And that was really exciting. I love that. I also absolutely fell in love with this company called Wandering Flock Fibers. I've got their lovely bag here. Wandering Flock Fibers. This just, I thought, was such an absolutely stunning colorway. I mean, purple and brown, how interesting, but dyed on the Brooklyn Tweed loft base. So I saw this very early on Friday night and circled around and really wanted to grab it before I left because I thought it was really special. So that was really great. And it was sitting beside this blue. And at the time I didn't pick up the blue, but I went back the next morning to pick it up because I just think it'd be lovely to have an interesting sweater in this colorway trimmed with this lovely blue. So yeah, so I thought that was really neat. So I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on Wandering Flock Fibers. I think they're doing some really neat things. Also on my first night, I went to the Argyle shop, and I really like to look at their colors. They've got great colors of probably a lot more of the superwash yarns, which I don't tend to stock up on, but I do love, and it's really fun. And the Hedgehog fibers are always really cool. I kind of went around and around in circles, and I went back on Saturday and went around and around in circles on colorways and fades and stuff like that. And I couldn't see the forest of the trees because it's so beautiful and there's so much to offer. So I made notes of what I was looking at. But what I did do is I picked up, this was the Hedgehog Fibers Vogue Knitting Live color for 2024. So I just thought that's an easy one, and that's really, really fun, really special. And whether it gets used for socks, because it is a sock base, or just goes into my stash to be used for whatever, because it's a really special one. It would be great socks, but it would also be great in a garment or a shawl or something. So that was sort of the fun treat of the Vogue for this year, like souvenir for this year. Anyway, so that was really fun. So did that, and then went out to dinner with Lorian and Shannon, and that was great. And it's just so funny. I'm such a old fart sometimes, and I like to go to bed early, and as you can see, I haven't for the last 2 nights, and I'm so grateful I haven't, because at home I'm literally asleep by 8:30. And so when Shannon and Lauren invited me to dinner, my immediate instinct was like, oh gosh, it's too late. And then I just thought, Beth, no, you're here, you know, enjoy it and say yes. And I'm so glad I did. And it was just such a lovely, and we have so much to talk about, you know, whether it's sweaters and design and knitting and just everything. So that was really wonderful. And it was such a glorious night afterwards. I ended up walking back with Lorian to Grand Central, and then I just thought it was such a glorious night. I ended up walking all the way back down to Soho, down by Canal Street. So that was Times Square to Canal Street, which I wouldn't think twice about during the day, but it was really fun at night. And, you know, the city was quiet and it was warm, and it's fun to people watch and window shop and that sort of thing. So that was Friday was a really fun day, and a late night. So that's great, and loved it. Again, Saturday was sort of the most packed day. It's the busiest day. So if you like busy and a hubbub, that's the day to go to. If you don't, Friday night and Sundays are the days for quiet. So Saturday was busy. It was really fun. Saw a lot of people. Did a bit more shopping. That's when I picked up. This was like on my first thing to pick up the blue to again coordinate with this. You can see the lovely blue in there. So that was through the night I was like, oh, make sure I got there. And I'm glad I went because there was only 3 left, and I took 2. So grateful for that. I also know that I bought some of the Wool Dreamers Mota at Rhinebeck in a lovely gray color. And I was thinking it'd be such an interesting yarn to have maybe a second color with it. So also on my list was to pick up just a secondary color, and I thought this was really pretty. So this is Mota color, I'm not sure. Anyway, color 718G. So that's on the gray base. So I just thought it was really interesting. If you can see the gray flecks in there, the gray base with the turquoise sitting on top of it, I thought it was really interesting. And they had the gray color that I had purchased, so I could really play around. That was fun. So that was on my list. Did pretty well sticking to my list. So that was Saturday. Took myself to lunch, and which I enjoyed, a quiet moment. And then back in, did some more visiting with people, and I just had a great time. There was great things going on the stage, which I sort of would try to catch as much as I could, and just people watching and looking at everyone's sweaters and everything like that. So that was Saturday. After my lunch, I ran into Dinah Moore from the Knitting Place. I'm sure you all know Dinah and the Knitting Place, and Pam Sapienza. They're fabulous. And Dinah was on her own, and she had done her look through. And I told her about the FIT exhibition. So off we went back to the FIT. So I went there twice in that day, and amazing, totally fantastic. So that was really fun. So got to hang out with Dinah for the afternoon, which was so much fun. Again, such a treat to be able to chat and hang out with, the knitting friends in a more leisurely, casual way. We went back downtown, down to Soho. I showed her she was interested in a few sort of shops that we had talked about. So went down there, and then she whisked home back up to the to Grand Central to get on the train to go back to Long Island. And I came back to the hotel, dropped my heavy bag, and put on some little lipstick, and back uptown, up to the Upper East Side, to have a lovely dinner with Kim, Kate, and Laura of the Knitting Posse, their friend Sue, and Needles at the Ready, so Kevin and Ray, and lovely Maxim Cyr from Les Garçons. And this has become, I think, a new tradition. This is our 2nd year going to the same restaurant, same night during New York, I was gonna say New York Sheep and Wool. Oh gosh, Vogue knitting. And we had a fabulous night, and I didn't get home till very late, so I'm feeling a little groggy. And it's funny, I don't get bags very often, but holy camole. I'm kind of grateful for a rainy day and a quiet afternoon, because last night was fun. It was really fun, and just kibitzing and chopsing, and just wonderful. So that's, all of these lovely special times. I wouldn't say one-on-one, but in smaller groups at a more leisurely pace, that to me is heaven. And so I just had such a great time with them. So that was yesterday. It was pouring rain this morning, absolutely cats and dogs, which was great because it was a great reason to hunker down and stay in bed a little later and just try to sleep. But of course, I'm not very good at sleeping in, but I got a few more winks, and then back up to say goodbye to Vogue Knitting. Always sort of sad to do the last walkthrough because, of course, it's not until next year again. And I had seen this yarn actually on Friday during the day on Asylum Fibers Instagram, and I really loved it. And so I just absolutely caved today. And so I got a sweater's quantity of this. So this is Asylum Fibers in their oil slick colorway. And isn't that just so interesting? I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do, whether I hold it on its own or whether I find a really interesting mohair. I'm not sure, but this was sort of the one that I have less structure, and it wasn't really on my list, but I couldn't resist. I mean, her colors are so interesting. Like, look at that incredible violet in there, and then the chartreuse, and it's just like an oil slick. I love it. I'm really excited about that. So that was really great. Did a wander through, saw some more friends today. I kept running into Irina Shar, of course, and it's always fun to see her. So I said goodbye to her today. I probably won't see her till the next event, which might not be till next fall. Yeah, and love it. So I'm not sure I'm recording it all together, so whether you see more of me in my kitchen or me in my hotel room, I hope that was good. New York was so much fun. Vogue Knitting Live. Also, when I'm in New York, I love museums. I love art museums particularly. I love the feeling of being in them. I like walking through them. I like seeing exhibits. I don't like to see everything. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. You can't take it in. It's basically a waste of time in my mind. So I'm a frequent flyer at the museums, and there's always a big turnover at the end of January. So I knew there was a lot of new things that I could see. So I picked 6 museums to see, 1 per day while I was in New York. I went up on a Wednesday and flew back really early on a Wednesday. I was home before lunch. So I had 6 days in the city, and I filled my boots with museums. So the first day when I landed, I had lots of tourism stuff to do, errands in the West Village, Chelsea meatpacking district. So I hit the Whitney Museum. That's always fun. It's really a manageable size museum. It's very new. It's a new building. It's purposely built for the Whitney collection, which used to be on the Upper East Side. Now it's down the meatpacking district. And they had an exhibit that I was sort of racing to see before it closed. I think it closed on the 28th of January. So I squeaked in, I think 3 days before. And that was called Henry Taylor, the B-Side. And he's a painter from California. Really amazing. I didn't take any photos. I'm hoping that maybe I should see if I can be super fabulous, and maybe I'll sit over here. And I'm hoping that I can do with magic videos of some of the shows that I saw here. If I can't, really sorry. But anyway, so I didn't take any pictures of the B-Side. I was still kind of in that, just thrown into the city, getting, deciding everything. But it was really interesting. Again, his name was Henry Taylor, and from California. He painted in a really naive style, but what I loved, it was a lot of family and friends, and the communication points were faces, and the level of expression and level of communication through those faces was amazing. I mean, while the paintings as a whole were sort of very naive and gestural, almost simplistic, almost even immature, purposefully, the facial expressions were piercing and clearly communicated what the artist wanted to. So that was really neat to see, and I'm really glad I got in there, even though I was kind of in a bit of a whirlwind. The Whitney Museum is beautifully located right on the Hudson River, and they have a permanent exhibition, which I find just stunning. It's metal shapes that outline what was one of the original warehouses on the Hudson. So I can insert a picture of that because I'm always taking pictures of that. I find that very striking on the horizon. And also I love the history of the city, so it makes me think of the bustling ports of Manhattan, which are no longer now. They're in Elizabeth, New Jersey and elsewhere across the river. But what it was like when it was a smaller world. So that's great. And then Diane von Furstenberg and her husband, who I can't remember his name, they've done the Little Island project, which is an extension of the High Line. So again, really beautiful. I'll try and include a picture of that here as well. Really nice to see, and you can see those beautifully from the Whitney Museum. Friday, I love the Metropolitan Museum. That's one of my favorite places. Along with the Whitney, I have a membership there. I go all the time. It's so huge that it's so, in my mind, so much better to go just for one exhibition, not multiple. It's too much. I like to walk through the spaces, and I have sort of a routine of where I like to walk and just float through. But I usually only wish to spend time on one thing so that I can fully digest it, and that's what's super important to me. So the Metropolitan Museum also has the Costume Institute in the basement below the Egyptian section, and this time they had an exhibition on women dressing women, so women fashion designers designing for women, and it was spectacular. So it goes back to sort of the history of fashion and when women got involved, which was usually I believe the early 1800s, and then of course transitioning into the early 1900s, and the war pushed more women out of the assistant positions into the sort of head of the ateliers. Really amazing. So they had historic pieces up to very contemporary and even sort of futuristic pieces. So they had one piece done by 3D printer, which was in a previous exhibition they had before on Mana versus Machina. But again, amazing to see. It's a beautifully sized space in the Metropolitan. So again, really bite-sized. I like, it's like my sweaters. I don't like things too complicated enough that blows my brain apart. I want to learn and I want to absorb, but I want to feel like I have absorbed rather than just been bombarded with information. And sometimes the smaller shows or exhibits are just perfect, and that's enough for you to kind of digest, really digest, and to enjoy mulling over. So really enjoyed that. And then it's just so much fun to leave, say, the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum and just walk down Madison Avenue. So I walked all the way down to Bloomingdale's. I had to pick up something there. Anyways, and down eventually meandering all the way over to the Times Square, to the Marriott, to get to the opening on Friday night for the Vogue knitting. But it's fun to go from historical, contemporary, futuristic, sort of theoretical, and then walk down the street what's currently, and as you go down Madison Avenue, the closer you get to 59th Street, the more high end it is. So you get down to, some major designers, and so you can see what's happening in the world right now. And that I find amazing. That to me just blows my mind. And I think it's really important because, again, we're into knitwear and making our clothes in the slow fashion movement. And I think the high-end designers it's not slow fashion, but it's specific pieces, and it's purposeful pieces, and it's time and energy and high cost. But it seems very similar to the knitting world that we're in. And I can definitely appreciate that, and I really, really love it. So that was a wonderful day. Just to start with fashion and end in fashion of Vogue knitting, or end in the construction of fashion at Vogue knitting. That was just fantastic. really enjoyed that day. And again, women's dressing women, I'm not sure how long that's on for, but if you're in the area, I would highly recommend you see that. Really great. Saturday morning, I woke up early, excited to have that full day at Vogue Knitting. And again, I was down by Canal Street, and I love to walk. Oh, and Friday night was so much fun. I walked back from dinner from Times Square with Shannon and Lorian. So again, I love walking. So I walked all the way back down to Canal Street. Didn't get in until quite late, but it's beautiful. The city's amazing. So the next day I basically repeated that route, except instead of down Fifth Avenue, I went up through the West Village, well, to Chelsea, and stopped at the museum at FIT. FIT is Fashion Institute and Technology. It's a school for fashion. It's very well known internationally. It's pretty cutting edge. I don't really know much about it. I know people that have went there. But their museum is just a little jewel, and always has amazing things going on. So definitely, if you're in the city, I would highly recommend you just check it out. It's free. You can bop in and out. My visit, when I really took my time, was probably an hour, and I really read everything. I went back that afternoon with Dinah from the knitting place because it was such an amazing exhibit, and we just went back in, and she got it was quick because we had other things to do, but she could take a look at it in half an hour and get an idea. So great gem of the museum at FIT. And that exhibition was on statement sleeves, and how fantastic. So it was the modern history of sleeves. There's 8 styles of sleeves. They define them, they talk about them, everything from raglan to kimono to, and again, this is fashion, so it's not so much, not like knitting would be set in and whatever, but so sleeve shape, bell, leg of mutton, kimono, whatever, on and on. Amazing. And so again, relevant because we all know that a sleeve can really change the look of a sweater, or of anything that you wear. So, and also the functionality. So that was amazing. And again, not sure how long that's on for, but if you're in the New York City area, definitely go see that. And free and everything like that. So, and I'll have talked to you about hanging out with Dinah, I think. And that night I had dinner with fabulous friends, the Knitting Posse, Needles at the Ready, and their friend Sue and Max. Unfortunately, Vincent wasn't there, but so we had a great, again, further conversation about knitting and fashion and stuff like that. It was always really fun. Yeah, so that was that. And Saturday I spent the rest of the day pretty much at, until I hung out with Dinah. We went back downtown. Sunday, I had a bit of a lie, and I was starting to feel a little tired. Like this was, major socializing, and my head was still spinning of all the yarn fumes and everything, and all the excitement and ideas and all that great, seeing friends and stuff like that. So I had a little lie-in, which was lovely, and eventually made my way back up to Vogue Knitting to do a last few rounds and say goodbye, which was great. And on the way back down to the hotel, right before I recorded that last episode, that last little snippet that I will have hopefully inserted before this, I stopped into the Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA, to see the Picasso exhibit, Picasso in Fontainebleau. That was really interesting. It was small, few sizes, few pieces. The MoMA usually has majority of their exhibition spaces on their permanent collection, which is fine. I've seen it a lot. It's really great. It's a beautiful museum. It's not my favorite museum. I think the layout's very strange. It's a real rabbit warren of room. So for someone, I'm very spatially oriented, so I spend more time in my head trying to figure out where I am than what I'm looking at. I find that disorienting and unfortunate but again, it's just how my brain works. But the Picasso Fontainebleau exhibit was interesting. It was in his earlier life when he was very content and happy with his first wife and first child, and so that was sort of lovely. There was another Picasso exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum in the fall, which was a bit darker, so it was just nice to sort of see a lighter, fresher, happier, more content man with drawing musicians and painting musicians and painting his gorgeous new child and his wife and stuff like that. It was, I don't know, sometimes you just like a little bit of light and family and love. and that's what was there. And then I came back and recorded that other bit on Vogue Knitting Live, and then crashed out. I was tired. Wow, amazing. Lots of walking. I think I walked back also from the moment back down. I think I hopped on the subway at Madison Square. So I think I went 3 or 4 stops, but I just love walking. So that was great. And then, so then Vogue is over. But on Monday, the Brooklyn General had an exhibit. Brooklyn General had an event called the Makers Maker Meetup. And it was Brooklyn General, so Catherine and her staff, her people at the store, with Amy Gilles from La Bien Aimee, and someone from a making podcast. It was cool. It was good. I was starting to, I think, come down with a little bit of, I was feeling still exhausted. Wasn't feeling I felt like I think my social energy had kind of run dry. I should have stayed. I should have hung out. They had a lovely area for tea and hanging out and chatting. I wanted to in some level, but I just was really done. It had gotten really cold by Monday, so I was cold to the bone. I was tired still, and I just really needed some space. So I went. It was lovely. Saw Amy. I didn't really know anyone else. Kind of floated around and then left. I like Brooklyn. I like walking around Brooklyn. There's lovely streets around Brooklyn General that have beautiful brownstones, so I purposely do a lot of walking. I go on the subway just through the tunnel and get out at J Street, or I think it's Smith Street, either or, whichever train I get off at, and just purposely walk down. Like Henry's, a lovely street of beautiful old brownstones. I think there's quite a few historic down there, so that's just kind of a nice dream to kind of walk around, which I did, and I like being by myself, so sorry. And then it was really cold, and I wanted to go up to the Guggenheim. So hopped on the subway. I found the Express 6, which was great, from J Metro Tech, whatever, which takes me right up to the Upper East Side within like mere minutes, which is amazing. Hopped out, and I was walking by the Neue Gallery, where there's the Sabarsky Cafe, and there was no lineup. And on a cold day, going into a lovely Viennese restaurant was just amazing. So I had a 3 o'clock dinner, which I do when I'm traveling by myself, and warmed my bones and just enjoyed the view, and that was great. And then went to the Guggenheim. The Guggenheim had a show called Going Dark, basically discussing invisibility. By then I was sort of missing my family, and it was a sad show. It was definitely not uplifting, definitely not sort of Picasso with his family and musicians. It was dark, and it's very valid. It's a very valid topic of feeling invisible. But I kind of walked through it and walked out. And again, that's what happens when you, and I allow myself that. I don't push myself to stand and read everything. If it doesn't do anything for me, or I find it inspiring in any way, then I don't need to stay there. And that's my attitude. And so I loved that I could just walk up the Guggenheim, and then I walked down the Guggenheim and walked right out. And I was warmer for it, and that was great. And I think I crashed out too, so since I'd already had a really early dinner. So that was Monday. And then Tuesday, again, really cold, I found. I did my last few things that were on my list. So coming from Bermuda, where we have, we've got Hamilton and we've got stores and stuff, but there's still certain things that you want to get, like cosmetics, or I always buy like Cetaphil wipes. We can't get them here, so I always bring back a ton or whatever. So I had to do my last little chores on my little to-do list, send off a package to a friend, whatever. Anyway, so I went to the Cooper Hewitt Museum. Now the Cooper Hewitt Museum, again on the Upper East Side, they're all together. It was like the Met, the Guggenheim, and the Cooper Hewitt. They're all Museum Mile. They're all together. And I should have, if I hadn't been pressed for time, I could have done the one after the other. But again, I like to space it, savor it, enjoy the time, think about the exhibits, not just rush it all into my brain. So the Cooper Hewitt Museum is wonderful. It's a Smithsonian museum, so it's fantastic. It's usually very interactive. It's a museum that we've always gone to with my husband and son. There's always something for everyone there. It's not just art or whatever. It was fabulous. There was 3 exhibits on there. Again, Cooper Hewitt is a small building, great cafe. You don't need to go into the museum to go to the cafe. So again, if you want a hot coffee or a chocolate or a piece of cake, great cafe. So there were 3 floors. On the first floor, there was a very small but very interesting exhibition on symbolism and how to create symbols that are universally understood. That was really amazing. A lot of focus was on sort of like the evolution of the symbols for the Olympics. Just, because of course there's always the stop signs and the whatever, which they talked about, but then just basic symbols taken out of context from the everyday was really interesting to see that, the archery, the diving, the swimming, the whatever. So that was really interesting. Quick walkthrough. Also talked about defined color and what color in symbols mean. So I took a photo of that because I think that's really interesting, helpful, relevant. Again, we knit, we're creative, we do things with color. It's interesting to see what we're also communicating subconsciously or consciously. And then the second floor was what had initially drawn me was a wonderful weaver, American weaver named Dorothy Liebes. I think they pronounced it Liebes in all of the video, and or Liebes. Anyways, amazing, from California, from the San Francisco area. Started in the 30s, worked with a lot of interior designers, did a lot of interior design herself, more window treatments and stuff, set design, or helped with sets, did a lot of really interesting materials in her weaving, was famous for her use of color and her color theory, which was a dark, a light, and a bold. And, fantastic rules to live by. She did a lot of reflective materials in her fabrics, which she used as window treatments, which appealed to the movie industry because it created a sense of warmth and sort of staging around the actors in a scene. She did a lot for very fancy restaurants and high-end properties. Dorothy Draper she worked with, which is a famous interior designer from California. Yeah, amazing. I enjoyed it. I liked looking at her texture. She worked with, she didn't really want to work in fashion, but she had a friend who was, did I write her name? No, I didn't. A fashion designer that was a friend of hers, so she only sort of provided fabrics for her to use in fashion. She worked for, DuPont. She worked for DuPont to also make her very high-end, unique fabrics, very practical for airplane upholstery, train upholstery, carpets. So a really interesting person in history. And, woman run, she had a weaving studio in San Francisco, then set up a second one in New York, found she couldn't maintain the 2 ateliers, closed down for San Francisco and worked entirely out of New York in the end. Really interesting, and photos of her ateliers had cubbies, like we all are familiar with, just full of yarn and fabrics and, materials. So she did a lot with synthetic materials, which were kind of new and revolutionary, especially metallics. So again, it all looked really familiar, and it's all sort of a crossover to our knitting, creative, artistic community that we enjoy so much. So that was great. Really recommend that. And then the third floor was an exhibition called An Atlas of S. Devlin. And S. Devlin is an installation artist, does huge 3D installations. She does a lot of sets for music concerts and things like that. So that was less sort of knitting world, less fashion, but mind-blowing. And the way they put on this exhibition was just absolutely a full body experience where you get off the elevator, because this is in the new section. The third floor is only in the new section of the building. The original mansion only had the 2 upper floors. So in the new section, the third floor, get off the elevator, and then there's a lovely docent that takes you in and has you sit in this room that looks like an artist studio with a desk and papers and bookcases around. So it was quite an interesting space. And then a film starts, and it's narrated by S. Devlin, who is this 3-dimensional artist, and she talks about how her mind works, and it just is amazing. And the work they did, sort of the books that were open on the table, you know, with the video, the pages would turn and things would happen in the room all around you. It was really wonderful, and showed you as the viewer what the experience that S. Devlin is trying to do in a music concert, rock concert, ballet, you name it, what she's trying to create a world that you inhabit temporarily of her design, and amazing. So yeah, and then you go through and then you basically see a series of her 3-dimensional, what do you call it? 3-dimensional mock-ups, you know, foam core for the different installations she's proposing. So, you know, one was the Miley Cyrus rock concert where Miley Cyrus was sort of down on her tongue. One is a Beyonce, when a teeny tiny Beyonce comes out of a huge cube to show sort of her humanity size in comparison to this crazy thing that everyone's blown her up to. Or Adele with her beautiful eyes. The show would start with her eyes closed, and then it would just blink, and then she'd start singing and then come out from behind the eyes. U2, they've done sets for other groups that I don't remember, and classical art in a park in London. Amazing. So not sure how long that's on, but really well worth it. So then that's Tuesday. Had to pack because I had a 7 a.m. flight back to Bermuda the next day, and I'm a fine traveler, but I'm always anxious of sleeping in. So of course you don't sleep that night because you keep on checking your alarm to make sure you haven't missed anything. And then so glad to be home with my family by lunchtime on Wednesday. Anyway, so that's that. Vogue knitting was wonderful, definitely a highlight, but I also love to pack it in with other things to give me creativity and to get an idea what's going on in the world, to further my mind, give me ideas for more designs or not, or just see things, learn things. Vogue knitting is great. I don't think I could ever do it, that being the only thing I do. But just walking down the streets of New York City is inspiration enough as well. So I guess we all take in as much as we can. There's so many other yarn festivals I'd like to go to, and hopefully as my child ages and needs us, flies the coop, which is imminent, I'd like to be able to go to those. I know Madrid is happening. I think it's this weekend. That sounds fabulous. I've never been to Spain. Barcelona apparently is wonderful. So I'd like to do that, but I'd also like to see, I know they have equally, if not more exciting, or to me as someone who's never been, exhibits, architecture, walks, streets, culture, food, everything like that. And that would be how I like to travel, to roll for these things. So I hope I've taken you on a little bit of a journey of how I, saw my time away. It was really wonderful, and it really invigorated me, it rejuvenated me. So very, very pleased with that. Other things going on. I've had a full clear bill of health, the follow-up from my lumpectomy, which is amazing, that I just got on Monday. I'm super thrilled about that, as you can imagine. And again, the big story here is get your mammograms. Things are being shown on the instruments earlier and earlier and earlier, so they can be handled quicker and easier and faster. So knock on wood, that's done for now. And then the other big exciting thing going on in our household is my son is off with his school tonight on the flight to London, England, and the school he is taking 30 some odd kids to look at different universities all around the UK. And I don't know how they're doing it. Each kid has got different interests, and they would, before a couple months ago, the kids each had to write what schools they were interested in seeing, and then the organizers worked it out. So I think there's each day there's 3 or 4 groups that go off in different directions and then meet up, and then they drive a little bit more north and they go off. And so all of Oliver's wishes and what schools he'd like to look at are being met. I can't believe it. I don't know how they're going to do it. They've done it before. It's apparently a success. The organizational feat is amazing. So he's going to be all over the UK, all the way up to Edinburgh, which I think is his first choice. So for the next 8 days, can't wait to see and hear what he thinks, finds, and all that sort of stuff. And then all the kids are doing different things. Where my kid is really into physics. There's other kids into law, nursing. I can't remember what else I read, but it's all in this itinerary, which is just absolutely incredible. So that's amazing. So that's about half his year is going, and then the other half of his year are not interested in either UK universities. A lot go to Canada, and there'll be a similar trip to Canada. A lot go to America, and a lot don't go to university. There's Bermy College here, and there's other things. So the great thing about Oliver's school is they facilitate for all forms of future plans, academia, and I love that. So amazing. So so this group are headed off tonight. So very exciting. So next time I talk with you guys, he'll be back, and I guess we'll have more of a plan on what he's keen on until he goes to the Canadian schools. The American schools, we're not American. They're very expensive. We've said no to undergraduate American for the American school. So it's too expensive. We're British and Canadian. That's how that works. So that's kind of the big excitement in our household. And so I hope I've given you the information on Vogue with that little video, and I hope I've put in here, hopefully, I don't know how to do it, hopefully, with some of the art gallery stuff. And so I don't really have anything else to end with. I may slip in a little beach picture of when we came back and went for another walk at the end, and then that's it. So I hope everyone has a wonderful time the next few weeks knitting. If you went to Vogue, it was lovely to see you. And until the next time. And thank you so much. All right. See you in a couple weeks. Bye.